Andrea Lutz. The man who pled guilty to negligent homicide in the death of a former Bozeman doctor will spend less time behind bars. Greg Trude was sentenced to 20 years in the death of Eugene Buzz Walton. But a Montana Supreme Court review board called the sentence excessive. They reduced it to 15 years with all but one suspended. He also needs to complete 500 hours of community service. Trude accidentally shot Walton after a hunting trip in 2018. He's now set to be released on October 14th. A Montana pilot and former MSU basketball player has died when the helicopter he was flying crashed while fighting a wildfire in Oregon. Bozeman resident Tom Duffy was also a leader in the Seventh-day Adventist Church of Montana. The church calling the loss heartbreaking. The crash happened when Duffy was doing bucket drops on the fire. He was the only person in the helicopter. And fires do continue to burn around our state, but we're checking in with Ed to see if the weather could either hinder or help those.
Yeah, we're looking at actually a better situation for us today as we take a look around the region, and temperatures have really started to level off a little bit. Strong storms yesterday did create some strong winds across southern Montana, in particular some of those strongest gusts like around Shawmut between Billings up towards Great Falls at 77 miles an hour. Jordan in the Fort Peck region saw wind gusts to 68 or 69 miles an hour, in Billings 58-mile-per-hour winds. Storms return tonight, especially for the southern portion of the state. We'll see some big fluctuations in the temperatures by the end of the weekend, and that smoke will come and go, and we'll hope it'll go a little more quickly across the region. We'll show you why in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Ed. It is the first day of class for Great Falls Public Schools, but there are some changes that will start outside of the classroom. Some schools allowing kids to come inside instead of staying on the playground playing. Other changes include eliminating lockers and drinking fountains and not sharing materials like books. Unused desks will also be removed from classrooms, allowing teachers to spread out kids. All of this, of course, due to COVID-19. For Student, the company that handles Helena Public Schools, is in need of bus drivers. So they set up recruiting stations to hire new drivers, and they say that they want to hire about 20 more people. Helena Public Schools added more bus routes to limit the amount of students on buses at a time. New at noon, a faculty member at the University of Montana has tested positive for COVID-19. The School of Theater and Dance faculty member has been quarantined. Meanwhile, Missoula Health Department is conducting contact tracing. They say the exposure happened off of campus. Health officials also say the case is the result of community spread. Another COVID-related death in Stillwater County now brings our state's total to 98 deaths, I should say. Active COVID-19 cases are inching closer to 1,700. There are more than 6,800 confirmed cases, and close to 5,000 people have recovered. Several coronavirus cases are now linked to the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally in South Dakota. There are more than 100 cases across 8 states, including Montana and Wyoming. 9 people testing positive in Wyoming, but those numbers for Montana have not been released yet. A COVID-19 outbreak resulting in over 20 cases and 1 death is reported at a Whitefish long-term care facility. Montana health officials say efforts are underway now to prevent further spread. At this point, all residents and staff will continue testing each week until 14 days pass without a new positive case. Flathead City County Health Department officials say they are working to control the outbreak. And a Whitefish City employee has also tested positive for COVID-19. The CDC changing up guidelines on who should be tested for COVID-19, and the agency no longer recommending asymptomatic people get that test. Previously, the organization said people should be checked because of asymptomatic spread of the virus, but the agency didn't explain the change, which has some doctors a little confused. Some states have their own rules that recommend people who are exposed do be tested. The United States Supreme Court will not take up the Montana Green Party's case, likely putting an end to that hope of getting onto the November ballot. Last week, the Montana Supreme Court ruled the Green Party was ineligible. Republicans were secretly behind signature collecting. The decision could impact U.S. Senate race between Republican Senator Steve Daines and Democrat Governor Steve Bullock. It's becoming more clear that most Montanans will vote by mail for the November election. 8 of Montana's largest counties made that decision to do away with in-person voting, Flathead County being the only exception. Overall, 40 Montana counties will hold mail-only elections, and residents can expect their ballots the second week of October. The deadline for counties to make a decision is Friday, September 4th. Well, the Billings woman who spoke at the Republican National Convention wants people to know her faith helped guide her through tough times during the pandemic. Tanya Weinriss, the owner of Mountain Mud Espresso, says she's received plenty of feedback since she made her speech.
I think my voicemail filled up in less than 3 minutes, and then probably a couple hundred emails, messages, positive and negative. We have people from all over the country wanting to buy coffee, and then we have people that are saying things that I can't repeat.
Well, the IRS just announced it will send out 50,000 stimulus checks next month. The catch-up impact payment relates to the mistake the IRS made in processing those original stimulus payments. The Internal Revenue Service accidentally withheld money from some people who paid their child support. Anyone who was behind on payments were not given money from the government. The status of the deliveries can be found on the IRS website. As COVID-19 drags on, it is getting harder to keep the family entertained, but families might consider Bike to Barns. It's an event happening in Missoula. It's a 15-mile self-guided tour through orchard homes and the Target Range neighborhoods. Along the route, there's farm stands to support local food systems. And when you sign up, you'll be given a bike route map, special farm stand offers, and local food meal vouchers. Organizers say the event is a win-win for everyone involved. We do have more ahead on the new news on this Wednesday, including this. We're taking a look at how one Billings woman helped usher in the woman's right to vote movement. It's an exciting story, but first, Ed is back in with a look at that statewide weather forecast.
Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back to the new news. Just wanted to share this picture and enjoyed this from this morning. The great colors and a monarch butterfly. It's about time to start heading south, and you'll probably feel a little more like that as we start getting to the long-term forecast as well. Temperatures into the 70s and 80s across most of central and western Montana, and then mainly the 80s into the eastern plains. We're going to hit some more 90s by later in the day, and the storm system from last night has already started to clear out. We showed you some of those strong wind gusts that were around, but it also did clear out the sky, at least to some extent. Most places in the good category, at least a modest amount of smoke around here as we get into midday, with the exception of down into Yellowstone National Park. The relative humidity numbers are starting to fall again, especially east of the divide into the 20s and 30s, and we'll see more teens and 20s by later in the day, and that will increase the fire risk somewhat across northern Montana. The most active area, though, is likely to be across the southern portion of the state. I want to show you the watch and warnings map just to show you that there's nothing there. We started off with air quality alerts, but they've all been allowed to expire here as of midday, as the amount of smoke close to the surface has started to ease up a bit. Now, we're still tapping into that smoke from California as the jet stream is pushing right up into the region, but now we're talking, well, we've still got that stream of smoke in the mid and upper levels, but closer to the surface, we're going to be more concerned about generating showers and thunderstorms as we start getting into the afternoon today. So here's the layout for us. The green shaded areas show where the Storm Prediction Center of the National Weather Service has painted in a little higher chance of storms that could produce strong winds this afternoon. These red shaded areas show where we still have some fire weather concerns. So as that disturbance slides across, we'll still have some of that mid and upper level smoke, but start to generate some of these storms, and there's enough moisture involved now that there could be pockets of some heavy rain, but also lightning and gusty winds could add to, at least some extent, wildfire concerns. Now it'll push through, and a stronger wave starts to move into the picture tomorrow. That will start to pull out some of the smoke, but also generate some areas with stronger storms that could generate some wind, some hail, especially in southeast Montana and into the eastern portion of Wyoming by tomorrow afternoon. By Friday, the sky starts to clear out. By Saturday, high pressure area is going to boost the temperatures up again. So for today, we're looking at readings mainly in the 80s, low 90s into the eastern plains. You can see where that line of showers and thunderstorms will edge across the region through the afternoon and evening. Some of those stronger cells will continue tonight and into tomorrow. Tomorrow will start off in the 50s and 60s, but end up with that chance of stronger storms in the yellow shaded areas in extreme southeastern Montana as some of those storms continue to move through. But look at the temperatures. We're mainly in the 70s to 80s for the daytime highs. So for areas of western Montana, looking at pretty consistent temperatures over the next few days with the highs mainly in the 80s. But look at the drop in the readings by the weekend, the highs only in the 60s by Sunday. For Great Falls and Helena, the temperatures consistently in the 80s, lows in the 50s. But again, that drop in the readings as we go from Saturday into Sunday and a cold front moves through the area. Butte and Bozeman, temperatures in the 70s to low 80s over the next few days. Some cooler overnights with, again, that significant drop in the readings. At the eastern plains, you guessed it, same story. Temperatures are the warmest here in the short term, but by the end of the weekend, a significant drop in the readings. There's a look at the weather. Back to you.
Well, today marks a major milestone in the United States. It's the 100th anniversary of the adoption of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. MTN's Krista Rose has the story of a Billings suffrage hero.
Even if you've lived in Billings your whole life, you've probably never heard the name Hazel Hunkins before. So, who was she?
Hazel Hunkins is a Billings native. She graduated Billings High School in 1908. And after being denied employment because of her gender, she ends up joining the National Women's Party and becoming Alice Paul's right-hand woman.
Alice Paul was a major leader in the fight for women's voting rights, and Hazel was with her through much of the struggle.
You know, we say all the time that women were granted the right to vote. They weren't granted anything. They fought for this.
And sometimes they fought without saying a word, peacefully protesting.
Hazel was a member of the Silent Sentinels, which was the very first group ever to picket the White House. So one of the things I say is that a lot of the protests and the things that we see today, they have their roots with Hazel and the other women of the National Women's Party. And all they did was stand in front of the White House with their banners. You know, Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty? They make themselves impossible to ignore. Wilson cannot step outside of the White House without seeing the Silent Sentinels outside his front lawn.
Their hard work in protesting paid off. On August 26th, the 19th Amendment was officially adopted into the U.S. Constitution, giving women the right to vote. And in honor of this, the Western Heritage Center currently has 2 different exhibits where Hazel is highlighted.
The first exhibit we're actually standing in, it's called Saints and Sinners, and it highlights 10 women in regional history who rejected what society expected of them and really created their own boundaries. They lived their own life on their terms. The second exhibit is actually only up through the end of August, and it is only about Hazel. And we highlight her life and her activities, and we really focus in on who she was and why her work is so important.
Important work from the past that's not forgotten today. Reporting in Billings, Krista Rose, MTN News.
And this morning, to say thank you, staff from the Western Heritage Center did lay flowers on Hazel's grave at Mountain View Cemetery. We'll be right back.
Farm and Ranch Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Welcome back for today's Farm and Ranch News. The TG Ranch was honored as the 2020 Environmental Stewardship Award winner at the annual mid-year meeting of the Montana Stock Growers Association in Billings last week. The award recognizes a Montana ranch that exemplifies environmental stewardship and demonstrates a commitment toward improved sustainability within the beef industry. The Voldseth family has been ranching in the valley of the Upper Musselshell River for more than 140 years, working to preserve and enhance the land for generations to come.
Typically what we focus on mostly is the grassland, because basically we're in the grass business. We only have cows as a harvesting mechanism. And so if you don't have healthy grasslands, you don't have much when it comes to ranching. We rotate cattle regularly so it doesn't get overgrazed. Some of the place that the range wasn't in that good a condition, If it was suitable, we farmed it, seeded improved pasture species, and the production is probably 10 times what it was before.
For more on the TG Ranch and the Voldseth family, visit the Montana Stock Growers online. In other news now, the Department of Agriculture Tuesday announced assistance for agricultural producers affected by recent wildfires. When major disasters strike, USDA has an emergency loan program that provides eligible farmers low-interest loans to help them recover from production and physical losses. Farmers and ranchers impacted by wildfires are encouraged to contact their local USDA Service Center to learn more. We'll be right back. When COVID-19 has had an impact on production, agriculture, the supply chain, and of course on consumers. President Donald Trump on Monday announced additional funding for the Farmers to Families Food Box program, helping those in need across the nation.
Today I'm proud to announce that we will provide an additional $1 billion to fund the Farmers to Families Food Box program. It's worked out so well.
USDA announced the program earlier this year with the $3 billion in funding that originally helped farmers and consumers during the pandemic. Through the program, USDA purchases food from farmers and then local distributors pack and deliver the boxes to families in need. The White House announced that the number of food boxes distributed recently reached 70 million Americans. In trade news now, China reaffirmed this week its commitments included in the Phase 1 trade deal. The pledge comes out of a conversation between U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Chinese trade officials, the first formal dialogue since early May. In a statement following the meeting, Lighthizer said both sides see progress and are committed to taking the steps necessary to ensure the success of the agreement. China's pace of purchasing U.S. ag commodities is lagging from expectations in the trade deal, leaving some questioning if China will follow through. While the purchase commitment is behind, Chinese firms continue to purchase U.S. commodities at historic levels. This week alone, 408,000 metric tons of U.S. corn was purchased by Chinese firms. In the trade conversations, the two parties also discussed the significant increases in those purchases of U.S. ag commodities, as well as future actions needed to implement the agreement. That's today's Farm and Ranch News.
British researchers identified 50 new planets using artificial intelligence. Astronomers and scientists built a machine learning algorithm to dig through old NASA data containing thousands of potential planet candidates. The planets range in size from as large as Neptune to smaller than Earth. Now that astronomers know the planets are real, they can prioritize them for future observation. So there really could be life out there.
My concern is I'll have to forecast for all 50 of those new planets, and that's going to keep me just jumping all the time.
Keep you so busy.
Let's go ahead and take a look and see what's going to happen today as we're watching for the potential of showers and thunderstorms to move across the region, especially through southern Montana and those green shaded areas. Pockets of some heavy rain and gusty winds are possible with a lot of those weather systems. Temperatures mainly in the 80s, but a big drop in the temperatures Sunday pretty much across the board as we'll look at a chance of showers or thunderstorms for much of the area, especially east of the divide. We may be looking at those warmest temperatures on Sunday, actually even occurring early in the day and then dropping off after that. So 70s and 80s for the next 4 days, and then mainly the 60s to low 70s for the highs by Sunday. And it looks like a lot of that cooler weather could carry us into early next week. So September is going to start off feeling a lot more like fall.
Okay, thanks Ed for that, and thanks for joining us on the New News. Have a great day.